Yep, okay, it should be showing up in a second.
Oh, Keith.
I have my channel up just so I can see it.
All right, I'll be rebroadcasting this to my Twitch channel as well.
Okay, okay, it should be showing up in a second.
Crap.
Can y'all talk, please? I have
Hello.
my channel up just
Good
so I can
afternoon,
see it.
everyone.
Hi.
We have a very special guest joining us today for the Dwindling and Unbelief podcast. I'll be rebroadcasting this to my Twitch channel as well.
Okay, good. Okay,
Yep.
Okay, it should be showing up. I am getting everyone else's in the feed. Last time, Godless Engineer, we went the whole, in like 10 minutes without realizing only my audio was hearing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This is only our third episode.
And we had some zingers too.
All right.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
hello, everyone. Welcome to Dwindling and Disbelief number 3. We are going to be talking about a nice little, what do you call it, brochure that Lara has put onto us. What do you have to say about this brochure, Lara?
It is, well, don't manipulate your little factories because we're covering this brochure from Boyd K. Packer called To Young Men Only.
And Godless Engineer, did you read this thing?
No, I haven't gotten a chance to look at it yet. I'm sorry, was it put in the Twitter
Well,
group?
don't manipulate your little factories.
I did make sure you had a
copy. We're covering this brochure.
Well, let's send you another one. Hold on one second.
It's a 9-page pamphlet.
It is,
It's not really a long read.
it's a
Okay.
thrill to
To be
read.
honest,
Hold on
though.
one second. Where did it go?
Oh, okay, yeah, I got it. Sorry, I missed that link in our messages.
Okay.
That's okay. I didn't read it until about half an hour ago, so don't feel bad.
I read it once a long time ago, and it's hilarious.
I read it yesterday, and and then I looked up Boyd Packer. That guy has had an old voice since he was a little kid, and a young man.
I think
Boyd K.
that's
Packer.
true, maybe of all of the general authorities.
Well,
There's more we can do on Boyd K. Packer, but let me tell you something about this guy as a former Mormon. I used to pay close attention to Mormon events because I worried this guy would become prophet. And he'd be the type of, I'm just going to
Ooh.
say it, asshole, would tell people to pack up and move to Missouri.
so what is Boyd's position in the church?
Well, now it's 6 feet under.
Yes, I know he's dead now, but before that, what was he in the church?
He was an apostle, a member of the Council of the 12, I believe.
Council
Yeah,
of the
the
12.
Quorum of the 12. They're basically the top 12 guys. And well, no, there's top 15. There's the first presidency, which is the head honcho, and then his two counselors, and then the Quorum of the 12 is people who are basically up there right next to them that all are vying to hopefully be the head honcho someday.
Let me turn my fan off just in case that's causing problems because I forgot that was on. Was he a member of the first presidency? I don't think he made it that far, but I know he was pretty close.
I don't think he made it that far. He made it to the president of the Quorum of the 12, which basically I assume that would mean that whatever the first presidency says, he'd probably be the intermediary between the two different groups. He would have had a very big chance of becoming president of the church if he had lived longer, I think.
For us non-Mormons, what is the first presidency?
It's basically
Go ahead, Lara.
It's the 3 top head honchos.
I see this look on your face, Godless Engineer. Is it that bad?
Well, no, yeah, I was reading through it, but so there's 3 head honchos of the Mormon church, and then there's a prophet above that.
The prophet is one of
No,
those.
the prophet is is the prophet is considered the CEO and basically controls everything else. But he does have 2 counselors who assist him, and then the quorum of the 12 are all the top tier guys who are hoping to be prophets someday.
Oh, okay. It's always fun to talk about these made up sort of organization, like organizational charts that just seem to be made up, because it seems like they're positioning the top 3 people as like the triune God sort of figurehead, and then you got the 12, which are representative of the Israelite nations, and then I guess there's just everybody else.
Well, the Mormons don't have
Yeah.
the Trinity.
Well,
Mormons don't have the Trinity, but what
They refer to it as the Godhead.
the Mormons are very big on holy numbers that they've taken from the Bible. 3 is one of those holy numbers. 12 is one of those holy numbers.
They get 7.
They were very big on. Yeah, they skipped 7 for some reason. But like whenever you had some big event, there's always 3 witnesses to that event. It's just something that they like, but they don't believe in the Trinity. They believe that in the same sense as everybody else, they believe that the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost are truly 3 distinct and separate beings who all work together as a team. They don't have that confusing God and Jesus are the same entity, just in different forms. Stuff that a lot of other Christian churches have.
Well, right. I didn't necessarily mean that they believed in a triune God. I just meant the
Uh-oh.
I think we're losing
the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You're cutting out a bit,
Yeah.
GE.
Oh, am I cut? Oh crap!
You look like you have some kind of lag issue, and
yeah, it had a conniption. I think it might be better now.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Well, at least Hurricane Dorian is affecting Alabama now.
Oh, jeez.
So
I can't let it go. Sorry.
I'm going to read the first paragraph. And it reminds me a lot of what I saw when I was looking into Steve Anderson and how he runs his church. When they go to make big decisions, it's for the guys only. There are present in this priesthood session only brethren. I approach a subject that cannot be appropriately be discussed if there are others present. I prayed fervently for inspiration, and I speak to young men of Aaronic priesthood age, to young men only.
I'm sorry, but when he says
13-year-olds, essentially.
When he says praise fervently for inspiration, I'm just thinking, given the topic of the speech, we know what he was doing. I mean, maybe he called it research, but he was giving it a tug.
So, try to tell, you're the only one of us that grew up cis woman. Does the subject of this brochure never interfere with women ever?
They never talked to us about masturbation. Now, I have heard of bishop interviews where that has been asked, but for the most part, it's kind of assumed that girls don't have a problem with it. I personally don't see a problem with masturbation. I don't see what the big deal is. But it was kind of assumed that we were less sexual than the boys, so they kind of just never addressed it with us and always posed it as we were at fault if anything happened as far as sexual encounters, and it was our job to basically keep the boys from getting into trouble, so to speak.
Wow. That's kind of backwards.
Yeah.
And here I am.
Well, I mean, in my case, in my case, there's something hilarious to that. I am practically non-sexual. So, like, their assumptions with me were true, but I know some girls who could break most guys I know as far as how hypersexual they are. So it's really a weird assumption to make.
But growing up as someone who was given the priesthood simply because I had the right anatomical parts, the concern here for men is that semen can be used to create life. When girls masturbate, they don't spill seed, essentially. It's that thing in the Bible. And if you know anything about this guy, he was almost as actually was probably even more racist than Brigham Young was. So.
Oof,
And sexist and
that's
homophobic.
saying something.
Well, here I am
Yeah.
dancing around the topic of the subject. You're like, yeah, the subject of the brochure and this, and try to tell us just right out. It's about a masturbation.
That's exactly what it's about.
I don't hold punches. Y'all should have figured this out by now.
So yes, for our audience, this is a 9-page brochure about why men should not masturbate. The last 2 pages talk about why you should not be with other guys to help you masturbate as well.
Actually, it says specifically do not fondle other guys because it counts as a major sin. Now, given how homophobic Boyd K. Packer was, he probably did fondle other guys at some point in his life. And I need to bring something up because you brought up the NIFB earlier. One of my earlier videos, begging Pastor Steve Anderson to come out of the closet, was flagged
Oh,
for a
fun.
copyright violation by him.
By him.
Oh, how much of his video did you use?
He's saying it's some piece of music that isn't even there because it's mostly just him ranting.
Oh,
The only legitimate copyright thing they can say, and it's covered under fair use, is I do use the bit from the South Park Scientology episode at the end.
Yeah, but they wouldn't own that.
Yeah. So, and Trey Parker and Matt Stone would probably be laughing their ass off at that kind of thing. But
Well, Laura, talking about what you were talking about, the semen, within your body, you have the power of creation. You will one day find a mate and desire greatly to express fully your love of her. The righteous expression of this physical love in marriage is approved of the Lord. She then may conceive and give birth to a boy or girl, a baby of whom you will be the father. That is a very sacred power.
well, procreation is a sacred power in the Mormon religion because how else are the spirit babies going to get their bodies?
Yeah,
I mean, that's the woman's entire role in the religion. Give people bodies.
Pretty much. Like, I was told that my 2 biggest goals in life were to get married in the temple and to have kids. And asexuality does not exist. And unfortunately, they know gay people do, and they treat that very poorly.
But they're worse about transgender people.
Yeah. They're bad about everybody. It's a hierarchy. It's a hierarchy of how bad do you really have it, and like, I think really and truly only the prophet doesn't get any bullshit. To be honest.
Oh, as another reminder, this is also September, the month when 6 Mormon women were excommunicated from the church for writing truthfully about Mormon history, also known as the September 6th. Let us also not forget that September 11th is not only the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, it's also the anniversary of the Mountain Meadows Massacre.
And I don't know if Godless Engineer knows what that is, but I don't.
No, I was about to ask. I'm not sure what that is. Can you explain?
The Mountain Meadows Massacre basically is a bunch of Mormons going into a camp of people who are going to California, killing all the adult settlers, and then taking the children. Some of them were dressed up as Indians. There was a movie that came out about it like 10 years ago called September Dawn, which people just say is a bad movie because it makes the Mormons look bad. But one of the reasons it made the Mormons look so bad is it insisted on historical accuracy and used the actual Mormon quotes from the time. And one of the things the Mormons did... Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to be like, so they killed all the adults and took the children, I'm guessing, to raise them as Mormons?
Raised them as Mormons. Then eventually the federal government demanded they give the children back. So the Mormons sent the bills for raising them.
Oh, I'm so glad the government commanded them to just give the kids back. I mean, did they like stand trial or anything?
Yeah,
for,
there were.
Okay, good.
Pretty sure there are groups called the Day-Night. I mean, Mormon history is bizarre.
Yeah. Well, I know it's bizarre not only for that, but like I know at some point like the Mormons split off from the Joseph Smith Mormons, or like one group of Mormons split off from Joseph Smith, and then there was this big Mormon war, and I don't know a lot about Mormon history, but what I know of it is pretty fucked up.
Well, basically, when Joseph Smith died,
Yeah.
a bunch of them went off with Brigham Young, but some of them still followed Emma and her children, and Emma was not going to go out west with Brigham Young.
Mm-hmm.
So they stayed in Nauvoo.
And who was Emma?
Emma Smith was Joseph's wife.
Okay.
His
His
first
only official wife.
Oh yeah, the only official wife. He married other, like he would send off like Mormons on missions and then like pretend marry their wives behind their backs.
Yep.
Oh, I know where he got that
Yeah.
from. I bet he got that from David in the Bible, because that's what he did to Bathsheba. Oh, she's hot. Hey, you go to war, get killed. I want your wife.
Where do you think he got the idea that it's such a bad thing to spill semen? I mean,
Oh.
biology doesn't even stand up to that. I mean, the male reproductive system produces millions of semen each day. It's wasteful.
Well, speaking of the little factory, or we didn't, but the reason we call this a little factory is because he makes this whole big analogy about the male body being a little factory.
With the release valve.
With a release valve. This little factory moves quietly into operation as a normal, expected pattern of growth and begins to produce life-giving substance. It will do so perhaps as long as you live. It works very slowly. That is the way it should be. For the most part, unless you tamper with it, you will hardly be aware that it's working at all.
All right.
Oh god.
Everyone who has little factory, raise your hand if you've ever tampered with it.
Oh, I definitely tampered with mine.
It reminded me about itself well before I started tampering with it.
Can I read this next little paragraph?
Oh, please do.
Please do.
Go ahead.
As you move closer to manhood, this little factory will sometimes produce an oversupply of this substance. The Lord has provided a way for that to be released. It will happen without any help or without any resistance from you. Perhaps one night you will have a dream. In the course of that dream, in the course of it, the release valve that controls the factory will open and release all that is excess.
Makes it sound like there are little gnomes inside your body operating this whole thing.
So, I mean, I feel like this guy would oftentimes come in his sleep. Like he would be sleeping and then he'd wake up mid come and it's like, oh shit, we gotta put it back in. We gotta get it back in, guys.
I think he was trying to tactfully approach the subject of wet dreams.
Yeah.
There's a reason why the Mormons have retired this pamphlet, but I am not going to let them forget it exists.
Well, if the body is producing an
No, you don't.
Go ahead, Tri-Tail.
They prefer you forget things. That's kind of their MO. Act like it doesn't exist, and if it's pressed too hard, then lie about it.
No, this should be just distributed in public schools as the masterwork it is.
Yeah. You know, the JWs actually teach that tight pants can cause you to orgasm.
Well, getting
Not unless they vibrate.
Yeah, Yeah,
But
well, KC actually reviewed. It was a JW video where he was like, and sometimes tight pants can even like you started talking about tight pants and how that could cause like some uncleanness.
tight pants can make you sterile if you're a guy, but I never heard they can make you orgasm.
Well, they might make you orgasm if they're on someone else.
Or maybe if you have a wet dream.
But what I like is, it's saying an oversupply of this substance. All we need to do is get some capitalism in our bodies, and that will help take care of all of that. That
means
markets
it'll just be
demand how
hoarded.
much we need to make or supply.
That means it'll just be hoarded by 1% of the cells in the testicles.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I can guarantee you that if we came like crude oil, this pamphlet would never be a thing. It's like, no, I think we need to stay with this little factory a little bit more.
if we came like crude oil, we'd never have an energy crisis.
So the next paragraph, the factory and automatic release work on their own schedule. The Lord intended to be that way. It is to regulate itself. That will not happen very often, unfortunately. You may go a longer period of time and there will be no need for this to occur. When it does, you should not feel guilty. It is the nature of young manhood and is part of the becoming a man. This is the last point where he will say it's all right to feel non-guilty. After this, put your guilt on.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, okay, the little factory analogy is really bad. Honestly, and this whole shit pile, that is about the only point that he gives that isn't a bad one, and I can't really argue with, because that is something that is natural and does happen. So at least didn't shame them for that.
Well, so I mean, is this section right here saying that you will just randomly come all over yourself?
Yeah.
During a wet dream, yeah.
Like I can't imagine. Like, can you imagine? Like, what if that was real? It's like you're at work one day, you're talking to somebody about TPS reports, and then all of a sudden you're just like, "Oh God, oh, I'm so sorry. That just happens sometimes."
I think he's referring only to dreams, but I like your version of it a lot better.
Yeah, I think he was referring to wet dreams, but that is hilarious.
We will be putting links to this in the chat on Alanis, not chat, in the text on Alanis' channel and mine, since I'm streaming it there through Restream. So you can pick up a copy of the little for young men only for yourself.
So this factory, the next paragraph tells you what happens if you don't allow it to work the way it should. There is, however,
I want to make sure my workers are getting paid enough.
There is, however, something you should not do. Sometimes a young man does not understand. Perhaps he is encouraged by unwise or unworthy companions to tamper with the factory.
Tamper with the factory all you want.
He might funnel himself
Mr. Porpoise's permission
and open that release valve. This you should not do, for if you do that, the little factory will speed up. You will be tempted again and again to release it. You can quickly be subjected to a habit, one that is not worthy, one that will leave you feeling depressed and feeling guilty. Resist that temptation. Do not be guilty of tampering, playing with the sacred power of creation. Keep it in reserve for that time it can be righteously employed.
All right, which one of us wants to respond to that one first?
I have to say, I think there's been scientific studies that have shown that regular masturbation is actually a healthy act.
Yes, it is.
And also, the only that like it will leave you feeling depressed and feeling guilty. The only reason why anybody would feel that way is because of religion.
Yeah,
I agree.
They basically saying that way. I remember this, and I don't know if Lara got the same ones. I remember being 8-ish or 9-ish when the this lesson came up, but you'd basically walk into your Sunday school room, and there'd be a table with like some grease or oil in a bowl, and then some water, and then soap. And basically, it would basically not say masturbation, but that's what it's about. And they'd have a kid volunteer, told, stick their hands into the grease, and then be told that they had to go to the bishop to wash away their sins.
That would be the last person I'd talk to.
So they,
Well, that's a different issue we'll bring up at some time if we haven't already.
yeah, but it's basically they start you young on
Guilt.
you know, these are guilt and shame for it.
And inappropriate video interviews with older men.
Oh yeah. I'm actually covering that as soon as I can get around to getting recording what I've already written. But yeah, the guilt starts early. I remember being told a couple of times, again, it was assumed that women were less sexual than men, and in my case that was kind of true, but I remember being told that if you ever have like an impure thought, like any kind of sexual thought, to think about the worst way you could possibly die.
Wow.
You weren't told to think of Roseanne Barr naked?
No. No.
Oh, great. Maybe
Was
I had
that
some
your
just
version of
bad
that?
priesthood leaders.
Think about how you would the worst way to die. If sex isn't complicated enough, let's add death into the mix.
Yeah, and see, here's something that's a really big issue in the church. They will tell you that sex is shameful and horrible except for marriage. So they teach you guilt and shame over anything sexual, and then expect you to all of a sudden, when you get married, all of that guilt and shame just disappears into the air. It's like, that's not how that works at all.
Yeah.
Like, yet they still have large families.
Well,
Yeah.
Boyd Packer
Really
was the 10th of 11th kids, and he had 10 kids himself.
So clearly they're encouraging it at some point.
Well,
And
no,
a lot of
that's what I'm saying. It's like, I know a lot of people who do have sex that still have hang-ups.
Yeah.
Because, after 2 decades of being guilted and shamed, you're not going to all of a sudden on your wedding night
Have
just
healthy attitudes towards sex. No.
Yeah. That's not how that works.
Unless you haven't internalized those messages. But religious people often don't they think these things are good. They don't think they cause harm. And I'm not bashing religion. Okay, I am bashing religion. But I don't mean everything in the religion is bad. I'm just saying this particular aspect of it, and there are many aspects for the Mormon Church, I'll say this, is not good. But also, I just want to ask, does anyone ever export their little factory to any other country just so it runs more efficiently or cheaper?
Not usually.
Yeah, our little factories are all... I'm sorry, I just can't help it. Our little factories are all American.
So then he starts talking about ways to control the factory, and he settles on mind diversion techniques like putting a Christian Mormon song in your head over and over
yes.
and over.
This is something that does need to be addressed, because one of the biggest Mormon hymns is called Come Come.
That Mormons aren't the only people who do this, but they conflate love with sex. It's not
Sounds
the same thing.
But he's not even talking about love there. He's talking about lust.
Oh yeah, I know, but they're like, it's like I remember being told sex is so beautiful and sacred and loving when you're in a marriage, and I'm just
Yes,
like,
only after
"Ugh."
marriage does it become that.
Well, he says repeat the song over and over and over in your head. And the thing I could only think of was there was an episode of the Batman animated series where he's fighting a mind reader and who could get into his dreams, and the only way he beat him was repeatedly humming Ferris Jocka in his mind over and over. I assume it was Ferris Jocka because that was the non-copyrighted music for the cartoon. But yeah, you can defeat Batman, supervillains, and masturbation by repeating songs in your head.
Especially songs with titles like Come Come You Saints. Don't forget that bit.
Hey, was Boyd K. Packer the one who suggested you tie yourself to your bedpost to prevent masturbation, or was that somebody else?
Oh, we should have gotten the Mormon Guide to Overcoming Masturbation because that's tied with this pamphlet too. But I think that was a different elder who used this pamphlet as his inspiration.
Oh God, that has to be terrible.
All right, let's talk about biology for a minute, though. Whether your factory is Swiss and it runs like clockwork, American and it's large, or Chinese and your workers work for 10 cents an hour, you will suffer no harm from manipulating your little factory. In fact, if you don't manipulate it every so often, if you're equipped with one, it can lead to problems with enlarged prostate, increases your risk of prostate cancer, and later in life, increases the chances that you may become incontinent.
Incontinent? Seriously?
I believe so. It has to do with the prostate getting enlarged. Makes it harder to control the bladder muscles because the...
Yeah. Well, so the document goes on to make it sound like once you start jerking it, you just won't ever stop. Like, you're just all the time, you're jerking it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's another thing in Mormon doctrines. They teach that once you start having sex, that it just progresses worse and worse until you're just a perverted soul who can't do anything but have sex.
I mean,
Actually,
is that why like Mormons have like 20 kids?
Apparently.
and Catholics.
Catholics.
Actually, most Catholics ignore their church's advice on birth control anyway, from what I understand.
I would believe that.
And the church doesn't really have an official stance on birth control. It's kind of a double speak. They don't say anything about birth control, and they tell you to only have as many children as you can handle, but they get to decide how many children that is, and will guilt the hell out of you if they don't think you're having enough.
Yeah, I've heard horror stories about women who wanted to get their uterus removed or their tubes tied, and the doctor, especially in Utah, where this happens a lot, thank God I never grew up in Utah, would say it's like, but what about your role to bring spirit babies into the world and give them physical bodies and bulk on the surgery? It's like, it's the woman's decision.
Yeah. Well, and also, people don't know this because it's not talked about a lot, but if you get your tubes tied and you don't consult your bishop, you can actually be disfellowshipped for that. Which is basically like you're still a member of the church. You don't lose like any of the ritual ordinances that you had done. Like you don't lose your temple, your spiritual marriage. You don't lose, your baptism. But you can't take sacrament. You're expected to pay tithe. You can't hold any callings, and you can't do anything that in public, prayer, opening prayer, or blessing of the food, or anything like that. It becomes pretty obvious pretty quick when you're disfellowshipped. They say it's a private thing, but because some of the punishments are very public, people know something went down. And they will gossip and talk about it.
Mormons gossip more than a lot of people I know, so...
Yeah, well, we're not allowed to watch, read, write.
You're allowed to read the Book of Mormon and all the Mormon scriptures as much as you want. But God, Joseph Smith was a terrible writer. did love the Bronze Age submarines, though. That's my favorite bit.
DE, do you see
yeah,
the
no,
paragraph on page 7 that starts with now a warning?
Let's see, page 7. Hold on, I haven't been keeping up with that. Pages. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now a warning.
Yep.
Let me see.
Or if you scroll to the end, go up 1, 2, 3 pages. Mine's opening up as a 2-page format.
Is this the one where he starts to talk about do not fondle other men?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. No, yeah. Sorry, I was looking at the other things. I got it now. You want me to read that?
Yeah, if you would, because I think you're the best one to be able to read this.
Okay. Now a warning! I am hesitant to even mention it, for it is not pleasant. It must be labeled as it must be labeled as major transgression? Is that a fucking sentence, really?
Yes.
But I will speak plainly. There are some circumstances in which young men may be tempted to handle one another, to have contact with another physically in unusual ways. Latter-day Saint young men are not to do this. Basically, what I'm telling you is don't touch your friend's junk, okay?
That's not in the pamphlet, but that is essentially what he's saying.
What gets even more a little weird about this is when I looked into his life, he went right out of high school into the military, surrounded by a bunch of guys while he was in the Air Force. Not the Air Force, it was the Army at the time, as a bombardier pilot. And so I'm wondering how much temptation he had with other young men that he had to shower with.
Oh, he's been tempted. You can tell. This story is not for the faint of heart.
Such practices, however tempting, are perversion.
You mind if I continue with the next paragraph?
Go ahead, please.
Okay.
We're just thinking of the Book of Mormon musical right now.
Sometimes this begins in a moment of idle foolishness, when boys are just playing around, but it is not foolishness. It is remarkably dangerous. Such practices, however tempting, are perversion.
Yes,
When a young man is finding... Huh?
I said practice safe fondling. Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
You don't want to jerk it too hard, you might pull it off.
That is one thing I never heard, but...
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I'm interrupting. My fault.
Oh, no, you're fine. When a young man is finding his way into manhood, such experiences can misdirect his normal desires and pervert him not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was intended that we use this power only with our partner in marriage. Is it so? It's like is it like a secret power? Is it like, Wolverine's healing ability? Except like I can shoot cum out my dick.
No, it's more like the sacred underwear. It's
okay.
sacred, not secret.
I repeat very plainly, physical mischief with another man is forbidden. It is forbidden by the Lord. You see, you can tell he's definitely touched another guy's junk before, because it's kind of one of those don't protest too much kind of situations. Mm-hmm. It's like, you don't need to convince me anymore, dude. I mean, you don't have to. Are you trying to convince yourself now?
I mean, this whole pamphlet's about masturbation, and then he brings up fondling other guys. Like, okay,
yeah, he was very much a homophobe. I mean, if he were a mega church pastor, I would not be surprised if at some point there were a scandal involving him and a meth addicted hooker. Who was that guy anyway?
Let's see. That was I can't remember. Normally, Ted Haggard.
Yeah. Just like I won't be surprised when Steven Anderson finally comes out of the closet. By the way,
Yeah, I
Steven
don't know.
Anderson,
I've heard that he sleeps in a separate bed than his wife.
that doesn't surprise me either. Steve Anderson, if you want to come out, we will support you.
So then he goes to the next section and talks about another way to handle it if you're being tempted by young men, and that is to punch the lights out of them.
That was in this pamphlet. I thought that was in One Call to the One.
Nope. When I was in a mission on one occasion, a missionary said he had something to confess. I was very worried because he just could not get himself to tell me what he had done. After a patient encouragement, he finally blurted out, "I hit my companion." "Oh, is that all?" I said in great relief. "But I floored him," he said. After learning a little more, my response was, "Well, thanks. Somebody had to do it, and it wouldn't be well for the general authority to solve the problem that way. I'm not recommending that course to you, but I am not omitting it. You must protect yourself."
Well, this is long before the Book of Mormon musical came out, and you didn't have the handy song "Turn It Off."
Turn it off. Just push your light turn it right off.
No, it's more like turn it off. Like light switch, turn it off. Yeah, I love the Book of Mormon musical. When I told my best friend I was leaving, she's ex-Catholic. When I told my best friend that I was leaving the Mormon church, she took me out to lunch, and then we played the Book of Mormon musical in her car over and over again while we drove around town for 2 hours. It's great.
Yeah, just lift your middle finger to the sky and curse him rotten name.
So
Asabiga Ibawai.
then the next chapter, he talks about or the next paragraph, how it is not normal to be born gay. And then he has this paragraph, which sort of like, what? Even those who have been drawn into wicked practices and are bound by almost unyielding habits can escape. If one of you seems trapped in that escape, go to your father or bishop, please. Your parents, your bishop, the servants of the Lord, the angels of heaven, and Lord himself will help redeem you from it. If you're having trouble being attracted to men, why is he sending you to your father and your bishop?
Because one, they think it's a choice. Two, they think it's a sin. And three, the bishop is the only person who can help you with sexual sins.
This is the one organization in the United States that did engage in electroshock aversion therapy to cure homosexuality. Didn't last very long, and at least they admitted it's like, this was a mistake, we shouldn't have done it. But it is something that should not be forgotten when it comes to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
Bible still called Mormons, damn it.
They still do forms of conversion therapy. I believe the group that they have right now is called North Star.
Isn't North Star a gay character in Batman?
Oh, I didn't know that.
North Star is a gay Marvel character. Oh no, I updated it.
I had no clue. I don't read comics very often.
Oh, no.
I guess they should have used Leahona to figure out that was a bad name.
They now say that it's not a choice whether or not to be gay, but here's the thing. The Mormon Church trains you from a young age that your job is to get married and have children. And that it's not necessarily a sin not to do so, but it is basically considered to be a complete failure. So you train gay people that they are supposed to grow up, get married, have children, and then tell them, oh, well, we're sorry, but because you're gay, you have two options. You can either marry a somebody of the opposite gender and fake your entire life and be miserable, or you can be celibate and be miserable. And church leaders don't see a problem with this.
However, they do not say that about transgender people. They think they're sinning against their eternal gender, whatever that means. And that has to do with the whole pre-existence thing. You saw parts of in Saturday's Warrior in last week's episode. If you want to watch the older episodes of this podcast, please don't go back and watch Saturday's Warrior.
No. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend.
It
And
was
they
a
still believe it is a
terrible
choice.
movie.
For that. But then again, the Mormons, they're led by a bunch of old men. They're very slow to change, even more so than the Catholic Church, where sometimes the Catholic Church is just backed into the corner by a former pope who spoke ex cathedra. But the Mormon Church doesn't have to hold these doctrines. The prophet can change his mind at any time, and you're supposed to have the power of discernment to discern whether the prophet is speaking as a prophet or speaking as a man.
Like they were speaking until 1978 that black men couldn't be in the priesthood.
They're teaching now that they're walking away from the spirit of discernment right now, and they're basically going with you keep praying until you agree with the prophet, is what they're currently teaching now.
That sounds like mind control.
Thought control, I think, is the correct term, but
yeah, thought control. Yeah,
it is. It is. They are very thought control-y. It's when I was growing up, I heard phrases like when my servant or the prophet speaks, it is the same as God speaking. When the prophet speaks, the thinking is done.
If the prophet said it, that's good enough for me.
If the prophet tells you something and it's wrong, you do it anyways, and God will not punish you for
do this in stereo.
So. Yeah, I don't remember the exact quote on that last one, but I mean, basically,
one of the questions before you go on a mission, if you're a male, and you're basically told it's like your job to be the head of your household, love your wife, and make sure your children are raised up properly, because it is assumed you will have children.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also I didn't stay in long enough, but if you're male, you're really pushed to go on a mission. And I think I brought this up before, I don't remember. Sorry, my short-term memory is not that good. But the bishop will ask you before you go, it's like, if I told you to kill a man, would you do it? The answer to that question is yes.
That's
I haven't heard that, but I'm not surprised at all.
And I did Google it. North Star is the name of the program.
Okay, I know that program name has changed a couple of times because when it gets bad PR, they change the name in the hopes that people won't catch on because it's a terrible, terrible program. Basically, what it is people are pressured into going into this program. It is, you can say no, but your life will be miserable if you say no, and it's going to be miserable if you say yes. So, but anyways, and what they do is they marry a gay person. It's a gay male program, and they marry them off to women.
Of course, it's not.
And tell them that if they have enough faith and they love their wife enough, that they will be blessed and happy. And then, and the thing is that people who have come out of that program have said that nearly every single one of those guys is cheating on their wives.
Not surprising.
That they have therapies where you figure out what your trauma was and try to correct it. And if you don't have a trauma, they make you make up one to deal with.
My dad tried that on me when I came out to him.
Yeah, and then the other thing is that some of the ones who are higher up in the hierarchy will hold parties, and you won't do anything sexual, but I've heard from different sources that say that these parties include massages and different forms of sensual touch.
Well, go ahead.
I'm done.
Go ahead.
Well, people, we promised GE an hour, and it's almost 8 minutes till the closing. So before we do that, I want to ask GE, do you have anything coming up this week that you want to pitch or promote this next coming week?
Oh, well, so nothing that I'm really doing on my channel, but I am going to be in I can never pronounce the city name right. Louisville, Louisville, Kentucky. I'm going to be there on September 11th for the Andrew Seidel debate that he's having. So I'll be there for that Wednesday and Thursday morning. But other than that, it's just a normal week for me. Just I've got videos on Mondays, Tuesdays, and potentially Wednesday or Thursday. Kind of depends. So yeah, just a normal week for me.
Okay.
But I really enjoyed this today. It was nice just sort of hanging out, relaxing, and you know, making fun of this pamphlet.
Oh, please share it.
Pamphlet.
And Lara, do you have anything coming up this week?
Well, first I would like to thank Godless Engineer for coming on, because honestly, I didn't expect him to come on because it was more or less just me joking about probably something about a ukulele and a harmonica, but because I have threatened, it's like if Alanis and my channels each get 100 subscribers, or was it 1,000?
1,000.
That we would do a ukulele concert with with Godless Engineer.
Hey, I'll be down for that. And no, I mean, I like coming on and hanging out with you know, everybody in the community. So I mean, I appreciate you guys, you know, having me on.
Thank
you for coming by. It was fun. I liked the preacher voice.
And honestly, I think it was better that you made it to this one instead of the Saturday's Warrior one.
Yes.
Oh no.
Tritel, do you have anything coming up this week or next week you want to talk about?
Yeah, I am trying desperately to finish that video I've been promising everybody. It's still in the works. It's taken kind of a lot more of a toll on me than I thought it would. And then after I get that released, I do plan on doing a live stream discussing the differences between resigning from the Mormon Church and being excommunicated.
Okay.
So keep an ear out for that. Yeah, and there's different processes. Both of them are a bunch of hoops and nonsense, but I kind of wanted to give the different perspectives because it is different enough to actually go over. I'm also strongly considering seeing if I can find somebody who was excommunicated and bringing them on. But since it's a hard subject to talk about, I'm not sure if I will be able to find anybody. So
okay. And I just released yesterday a video about the our first episode was about the book The Church and the Negro from the Mormon Church, and I managed to get a copy of it through Interlibrary Loan and made a PDF of it that if anyone wants, I can tell you where to get it. And so I did a review of that whole book. It was one of the hardest reads I've had to do for this kind of stuff because it just was so that people could believe this kind of stuff and yet think that they weren't being racist with the way they were putting it. And then tomorrow's my birthday, but I'm trying to release a video before then for next week so I could take next week off. And the working title right now is RR Spider-Man and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
I hope that's not the RR I'm thinking of.
Maybe not.
Because I just want to leave him alone. He may come around or he may not, but at this point that drama's gone on way too long.
Yeah, I know. Well, does anyone else have anything to say before I stop streaming?
Well, before you do, all right, I'm the one who's picked the topic so far because this has been my idea, but are there any topics either of you want to cover? Or maybe Godless Engineer has something he'd like to know about the Mormons that we can cover.
Well, I mean, honestly, I love knowing more about the Mormons because they're always so crazy. So, you know, I always hear something new. about the Mormons. So I don't have anything off the top of my head, but maybe sometime in the future we can do a stream or something where we just talk more in depth about the Mormon stuff.
Oh, you're welcome to come on at any time. I mean, we're not big enough to get R and Raw because I'd love to talk to him about. He grew up as what is known as a Jack Mormon. Because I'd love to know what his experiences were.
Okay, wait. So he was known as a Jack Mormon. Do y'all sometimes refer to him as Jack-off Mormons when you?
A Jack Mormon is someone who's basically, they call themselves Mormon, but they don't follow any of the teachings of church or sometimes even go to church. It's a term used more out west.
Oh, okay.
Well, what I would like to talk about at some point is that massacre you referred to of the children. I'd like to do some research and find out what happened. And
Oh, I was going to say, it's only 4 days away, we won't have time. But we can do that next week if you want to cover this, not next week.
the week after, yeah.
2 weeks from now to do the Mountain Meadows Massacre.
Okay. Anything you want to say, Tretel, before we go? You're muted.
She might have muted herself deliberately. Can we unmute her? Isn't this my call?
I think she muted on her end.
On her end.
Anything you want to say, GE, before we go?
Well, everybody, I hope that you will stand up and use your voice. And I had a lot of fun here today, and I can't wait to come back on.
Oh, and everyone, please manipulate your little factories all you want.
Yes, definitely manipulate them.
And this is Atheist T-Girl saying, I hope you all have a great day.